can I get a guy ask a question? That would be nice. Got one, two, three. What's your name? I'm not gonna call you to ask a question. Yeah, I'm looking right at you. So yeah, right at you. Because I promise I won't call you, but I just want to know. Yes. What's your name? Malik. Malik. When I said, can I get a guy? Malik was like this. I said, I'm not gonna do it. So Malik, do you have a question? No questions at all? None at all? Not one single question? Do you live close to where Teenie grew up? Where do you live at?
Bedford.
Bedford and what?
Winter.
Winter. Okay, cool. Nice meeting you, Malik. You like got a question. What's your name, man?
I'm saying, I get add to it. I'm sorry, Roger Burke.
Okay.
I can add to what Teenie's going through here because when I was in Jamaica.
And you know I say I come from Jamaica.
I would have to wait for there until my father comes home and he has to get his plate first.
And the big piece of chicken, right?
Yeah, and I kind of like this word experience most of it right here.
Oh, that makes you feel good, that it could touch you in a way that you could remember, like, I remember that, I remember. You know, it was in my house, my brother was the oldest male. My father, he wasn't around. But my brother got the big piece of chicken. And I used to eat fast. And my brother would be like, oh, this is so good. Looking at me, like, can I have a piece? No. Or he'd eat fast and then eat my food too. Because, man, I told my brother's 7 years older than me. So my brother, I told him when he's 50 and I'm 43, I'm gonna take him out. So he got a few more years of healthy living and enjoy your children growing up. When you turn 50, buddy, you're gonna get it for all them beatings you get from them. I'm never doing that to my brother. I might maim him, but I'm not gonna hurt him. But yeah, that's really great. I'm sorry, do you have something else to add?
Yeah, and same as how she had to come up with something nice in order to ask her father to go to YXSAP. Before I asked my father something, I was cleaning up the house, outside, and then when he comes, I said, Dad, I aced my test, I did this, I did that, and afterwards, Dad, I'm going on a trip, and you don't have to pay for that. From years, you don't have to pay for that.
That's it.
You could go, that's it.
Once it's free, it's for me, right? That's the motto. So, my mother wasn't that bad. So she came to my first reading, and she was a little annoyed. But I made a joke about it. I was like, man, look, okay, yes, Beresford has all these strict rules, but he redeems himself when he protects Sharice from that creep, Big Daddy, who has the most creepy name ever. Could I really have chosen a more creepy name than Big Daddy? Like, oh, that guy's not a sketchy character. Probably something I would go back and change if I had a chance. There's also a couple of mistakes in the book. And I will get to your question. I want people to tell me what's wrong with the cover.
Oh, the T's not capitalized.
No, that was intentional, but that's good. That's good. The look is not bad. The look is not bad, but there's something. Okay, one more. There you go. Somebody always gets it. Didn't put her eyes green. And I mentioned, I was like, excuse me, this is a lovely young woman, but her eyes, they're not green. I'm like, oh, it's black and white, no one can tell. But you can tell. But you know what? Hey, hopefully next time I'll have more pull and clout. Maybe if I wear like a sports coat and a pipe or something. I want this a certain way. There's a look that I want. You did have a question, right? Another one? Another statement? Okay.
What kind of annoyed me, her relationship with Sharice.
Mm-hmm.
Sharice got my nerves. And the way, I understand the way she would stand up to her, like Sharice would kind of throw herself. She would kind of always kind of jab at her. The way she would say it, she would just sit there and take it. She would kind of got my nerves. But in the end,
She finally got a little backbone. And, I've seen these type of friendships. I know you see them all the time, where the person is trying to prove themselves to somebody who's really not worthy of that. When you look at how the dynamics of a friendship, Teenie feels like she always has to prove herself to Sharice. When you look at it, Sharice needs Teenie more than Teenie needs Sharice. But Sharice is so used to doing everything for herself. given her upbringing. I touched on it a little bit where her mother's not really involved in, so Sharice kind of has to figure it out herself. She's scared, but she has to give off this image of, I know what I'm doing, I got it together. And you get yourself into trouble like that when you're 14 and you think you know everything. So I would say that, just to kind of go off on a tangent like I always do, one of the major themes of this story, if I can help parents and children or kids understand the importance between lines of having good lines of communication. Now, how much trouble could Teenie and Sharice have kept themselves out of if they felt comfortable talking to their parents? Now that goes both ways, because the parents have to create an environment where the kids feel comfortable. So the thing that I get from that is both sets, the parents and the kids, need to understand that they were one point teenagers. Teenagers need to understand that their parents have been through everything that they're going through. Sometimes they offer good advice, but the parents have to understand that they were teenagers too, making quote unquote dumb decisions. Because y'all make some dumb decisions, but it happens.
I admire that about you, because seeing that you're well grown up and still understand how a teenager might think, that's cool.
Yeah, look, you call me a grown up, I might have a little bit more wrinkles, but I'm still a teenager, man. I like to sleep. I don't play video games as much as I used to, but I love playing basketball. I'm still the unbridled enthusiasm that gets beaten out of you as you go, oh no, you have to be mature. Man, I like having fun and running and jumping and just being silly, and that's who I am. And I'm gonna do that until I'm 105 years old. So.
How did you get inspired to write about this specifically? Did you just sit down there and just be like, I'm gonna write about teenage problems?
Okay, I had written an adult novel, which was based, large part, the main character was based on me. I used to trade stocks for a living, he traded stocks. And it was this whole thing, I wrote a screenplay and hopefully eventually, well, that's another thing. Anyway, writing specifically about Teenie. So I took this manuscript and I gave it to this woman that worked for Jump at the Sun, which is under the Disney umbrella. And she read my adult novel and said, this is terrific. I was trying to figure out a way I convert it to young adult. But we can't, because there's too many mature themes in it. Can you write young adult? I was like, all right. So Teenie just popped into my head. The title, the little sister I never had, she's based on my ex-wife, based on my niece, based on some degree me. The little sister I never had. And I wanted to write a story because about the black diaspora, if you will. It's bigger than just books from people from Southern descent. It's bigger than girl in the projects, got a boyfriend that beats her as a drug dealer, and comes from a single family home. It's bigger than that. And I wanted to present a different image. You don't really see a lot of books that are based on Caribbean themes or values or people. So it's something that I am intimately familiar with because I'm of Caribbean descent. And it was fun and it was easy to do. And writing as a girl, I saw an article where they were looking for men writing as women. I said, okay, so I can take this West Indian family that doesn't really show up a lot in literature and write it as a girl. Cool. Oh, everybody was like, mm-hmm. That made sense. All y'all know that one girl with the real long lip. Like, I told him stop looking at me like that. How did the lip get so long? I don't know. Okay, finally got it. What's your name, buddy?
My name is Andrew.
Andrew.
While writing the book, what were some struggles you faced during the period of writing, as in combining Caribbean morals and American morals?
Oh, that is a very good question, because there is a bit of a difference, even if it's like a stereotyped difference. I know with my mother, it was, thank you. Okay. In my house, education was stressed. Like, gotta do well in school. If I got a 90, it wasn't good enough. I had to get a 95, I had to get a 96, gotta get 100. My mom wasn't trying to hear it. If I did something that had a scratch mark on it, tear it right in half. Oh, why you did that? So, in my neighborhood, it wasn't stressed as much. Now, mind you, a lot of these were children of West Indian descent as well, but they had kind of been Americanized, where it's like you get used to sleeping on silk sheets, you don't struggle. So I had a lot of issues with that. So not necessarily writing it, but growing up, where I would take my report card. In order to be eligible to play, you had to have I think like a 70 average, right? That's like cake for me, 70. I was a freaking nerd growing up. So when I would take my report card in, the coach would say, and you guys all need to be like Chris, and I'm just thinking, oh God, 95, 95, 95, and then I have like disruptive influence in class. Oh, but I obviously outgrew that, you know, I'm not a disruptive influence. Are you sleeping? Did I just catch you sleeping? Disruptive influence in class, and so all my friends used to make fun of me. Oh, Chris is a nerd. Chris is getting 95. He's a nerd. Ha ha ha. So I said, you know what? Next semester, I'm gonna get 80s and 85 so they don't make fun of me. What kind of thinking and logic is that? Just because I wanted to fit in and not have my friends, you know, bother me, I know I'm totally going off a tangent. I'm gonna bring it back though. I'm gonna bring it back. So when I went to Brooklyn Tech, that was the first place where I felt comfortable being smart or wanting to do well in school. Because everybody else was busting it out. 90 this, 95 this. And Mr. Spate, whose real name is Mr. Baskine. So Mr. Spate is based on my favorite teacher from Brooklyn Tech. He said, look, you guys are always making fun of some random person in school, calling them a nerd. The person you call nerd in school is the one you'll call boss at work. Now, never forgot that. The person you call nerd in school is the one you're going to call boss at work. So back to your question, my struggle with writing this, it wasn't writing as a girl. It wasn't you know, infusing my experiences into it, because I love to do that. The hardest thing was getting it published. 10 years on and off, I stopped convincing myself that I could do this, that I was good enough to write and get picked up by one of the most prestigious houses in the world. Didn't think it was possible. Kept telling myself, no, I can't do it, no, I can't do it. And then one day I was like, you know what, let me just give it a shot. Sent a manuscript and sent in my book proposals. Rejections. You get the form rejections where it's kind of like, this is not for us, but they don't tell you why. It's just like, we can't tell you we got too many other books, because they get inundated with manuscripts. So I'm like, well, how can I get my stuff to get looked at? And that came with discipline. All right, I'm gonna learn how to put a proper package together. So I actually had to put the work in. So that was my struggle. Me being this loosey-goosey person that kind of just, you know, just goes with the wind or whatever, to being structured and rigid. Because that's how you have to approach this. This is my career. This is what I want to do. This is what I love doing. And to learn how to really invest, get out what I put in. So that getting that lesson that my mother had beat in my head, for it finally to actually sink in, like, oh, okay, I get it now. That was the struggle. No problem.
I don't know if anybody else felt this, but I felt in the, that Teenie was kind of naive, like with the in the part when Granny had on the True Religion and she was pointed out and she didn't know what True Religion was. She's like, true what? Like the fact that she's in high school and like the fact that she didn't know what a blessing was. I mean, she could have guessed. I mean, the fact that she was in high school and she was around other students that she heard it. I felt the calendar and that.
Mm-hmm. I get that too, but I would say I was kind of naive growing up, so that's part of, because my focus was different. I was all about playing basketball and school. Like I wore the same pair of shoes for 3 months until I got a hole in it. I'm like, Mom, man, I got a hole in my shoe, and then I get another one. So True Religion, this and that kind of stuff, it didn't really start mattering to me until I went to high school. So, you know, people's focus is some people focus on one thing, some people focus on another. Like I was so into sports that clothes didn't really matter to me. It's only when I started playing sports, and then my teammates all had, you know, when we were there, it was like Jabot jeans and Guess and Tommy Hilfiger and that kind of stuff. And all you're like, that stuff is whack now. But anyway, that's what we used to rock back in the day. That stuff wasn't important to me until I got to a certain age. So you're seeing Teenie transform to where that stuff is becoming more important. Like she's changing her clothes. She used to wear button downs and penny loafers, because that's not what she was about. That's not what she was about. But valid point, because I think there were certain areas where, like, how does she not know this? How does she not know, or how can she not, like, figure out what the implication of that is? I don't want to ruin somebody's, I ain't finished reading it, so I don't want to ruin that for you. But how can she not make that connection? Valid point. Cornidra. Okay.
If there was any particular thing you would change in the book,
Some of the references to like instant messenger, I probably would have given her a phone, which is what I'm going to do in the screenplay, because it just doesn't work. The book was written 12, 13 years ago, and it's getting dated. There's an actual mistake in the book where I changed Sawazi's name from Bakari, and they left Akari in there. So that's something else I would change. Just my writing style, I think I've improved, but I like how it is. So I probably would get to the point where I would say, oh, I can make little grammatical changes, but I like how it came out. I'm proud of my first book, so I wouldn't change that much. Just some of the references that dated, like instant messenger, like I took out any song references except for the one that Beresford listens to. But that's probably just, I would want to make it more timeless if I could.
Did you know someone like Garth or were you?
Oh, was I Garth? So somebody asked me, was I Garth or Greg? I was not the star athlete, but I could dunk in high school. I was a pretty good athlete. And I was not the smartest kid, but I did have, and I still have a humongous butt like Garth. So that part, we're definitely similar. I know quite a few Garths. There's actually a guy from Tech. His name was Norbert, and they called him Nerd Butt, and that's who Garth was based on, Nerd Butt. So I did one of my friends she works for Penguin, and she was the first one to read my book. She's an editor at Penguin. And she's like, look, as soon as I started reading about Norbert, I knew it was that Norbert. You need to change this boy's name. So then I changed it to Garth, and it worked because then I changed the screen name to Garth Vader. And that was like, oh, I got it. Perfect. Right.
Have you always wanted to become a writer?
No. Out of grad school, I used to trade stocks, and I was all about that. And then one day I thought to myself, I think when Deep Impact and Armageddon happened, like, if this meteor comes and hits the Earth, they're not taking me in there with them because they have these like big structures, these tunnels that are built into the mountain. Why are they going to take me, a guy that's trading stocks? I had no value to society. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to be a writer. Like, when that meteor hits, they're going to take me like, look, I wrote this, help me, take me. The main reason I wrote it was my ex-girlfriend was reading like chick lit. I don't know if that's what they still call it. And she was like, oh my God, this is so good. Reading the steamy scenes, and I was flipping through it, and I was like, what is this? It's like, what is this swell? What are you reading? Not to disparage this guy, because he actually has written 20 or 30 books, and he makes a good living doing it. She's like, oh, you think you can do better? I'm like, yeah, I can. She's like, then do it. I was like, how will? So I wrote my first adult novel, and I was always good at writing papers, but with creative writing, it's just something on a dare. So I wrote 15 pages on outline, and she's like, that's pretty good. So that's how it started. That started when I was about, I want to say 22, 23. I had no idea that I'd be standing in front of you talking about something that I wrote. No clue. What's your name, man?
Alex.
Alex?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think you could have written the book from a different perspective, like a boy's perspective?
Oh yeah. One of my ideas was to write maybe 5 or 6 smaller books. One from Garth's perspective, one from Beresford. Well, not necessarily Beresford. Garth, Charisse, and my friend, the editor at Penguin, she said that she would pay more to hear Charisse's story than Teenie's. So that's something that I'm considering. Writing from other perspectives of the characters. So if the television show, God willing, happens, that would be something you would see. Smaller books or books about the Teenie universe. A book about Garth, a book about Charisse, a book about Greg. I think I can really develop those characters a lot more. So it's something I've thought about. And the thing with me, like I remember like crazy details, and so all that stuff is in my head. That's why in my head, I don't know if you guys are on this side, like I have like this thing that posts over here. Did you see it? I'm just kidding. But yeah, I have all these stories in my head. I just waiting for this break, one of these things to pop so I can just get it all out. What's your name? Deja? Okay.
what influenced you to use her with so many different
Ethnicities? if you are a person of color and you were born in the Western Hemisphere, there's a chance that you are made up of several different ethnicities. In my case, I am 1/8 Scottish, I'm 1/8 Irish, I'm also part Indian. You can tell by my good straight hair. Indian in my family. And of course I have West African from the slaves during the Middle Passage. So that's something that is evident all over. We're just a nice mosaic. Oh, that's a nice word. Of different cultures and ethnicities. My great-grandfather was 6'6". Scotsman, had long red hair, wore a kilt, the whole nine. My other great-great-grandfather was a 6'1", really strong Arawak Indian or Native Islander. My grandmother and my great-grandmother were Maroons in Jamaica. In Jamaica, there was a group of runaway slaves that set up their own communities. My grandma.
Mortal, right? Mortal?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my father is a
Your father? Okay. So that's also part of my mental. I used to write this in my college essays. I have their rebellious blood coursing through my veins. Like, oh, I love that line. I get it all the time. Oh, it's garbage. Just the way I wrote it was so bad. So made up of different ethnicities, and I'm proud of that. And eventually one day I'd like to go to Scotland and meet the Irish clan. You know, I'd love to do that one day.
Why did you incorporate Teenie's mother singing?
Nobody sang to me. My mom's, she was not a singer. It's just something, when I developed Glory, there's another name. Glory is my goddaughter's name. I just felt like it's the relationship that, I wanted her to have a really good relationship with her mother. And to be 14 years old and still have your mother singing to you, and then when her mother was mad she didn't sing, and Teenie had taken it for granted for so long, and she was like, oh, how's she gonna sing to Sharice and not sing to me? But I just felt it was just a nice way to put music in, because I love music. I love Bob Marley. I love reggae music, and it's just a way for me to pay homage to somebody that I feel has really, guy's brilliant lyricist. I don't know, does anybody listen to Bob Marley? You should. He's awesome, because his music is timeless. The lyrics sound great. He sounds great. He has so many awesome lyrics. But yeah, so that's why I put Bob Marley in there. I love Bob Marley. I love Sade also. Another statement? Go ahead. Let's go.
But isn't part of the story where I could relate to when she was talking to her Greg on Messenger, and like when he wasn't grammatically correct, and he was spelling words wrong, and she would get annoyed. I don't like talking to her. So.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's a good way to weed them out. Like, I'm trying to, what did this guy say? Ah, man, somebody just told me a story that some guy said to them. Oh, does everybody know what melanin is?
Yeah.
Okay, can you explain what melanin is? Okay, it's a pigment in your skin that gives you your complexion. So I had a shirt. You know, remember that Got Milk campaign? I had a t-shirt that said Got Melanin. So everybody thought, oh, that's so great. And this girl comes up to me, she goes, this girl was beautiful. I'm talking like, wow. And she goes, is that chocolate milk? And I said, yes it is. And I never spoke to her again. So that's a good way to weed people out when they, you know, I mean, if you really like the person, you can help them. But yeah. Yeah, that didn't really work with me because my mother would tell me to clean my room and the closet door would be bursting at the seams. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that I had to do. I don't know, my brain, I'm so scatterbrained that I would just be all over the place. My mother would be like, okay, what you have to do, the thing she would do is like, you can't go outside and play until you finish your homework. So that was pretty much the only thing that she said, you have to do this. So if my friends weren't outside, or I wanted to watch cartoons, I would have my homework set up at the kitchen table, and I would practice. Turn the TV off and run in, and then, well, hey mom, how you doing? And she'd get home like 7 o'clock, like, what are you still doing your homework for? But my mother was smarter than I gave her credit for. So this is the television. I'd hear my mother key in, I go run over there, sit down, doing my homework, my mother would come in and go like this. Touch the TV. Oh, it's warm. That's stupid. I was like, no. We had a project for school and wasn't trying to hear. But that was mainly the only thing. My mother insisted that I finish my schoolwork before I could go and play video games or go outside. That was pretty much. But she had a lot of crazy little rules, like if I took a shower for too long, boom, 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 she'd be banging on the door. But my mother was very protective of me. There was a time when this woman wouldn't give me a seat on a coach bus. We were coming back from Franklin Mills, it's a mall in Philadelphia, I think. Oh no, in Pennsylvania. And the woman wouldn't take her bags off the seat. So my mother says, what are you doing over here? I said, oh, that lady won't let me sit down. She was like, sit right here. So my mother got up, went over to the woman and said, I want to sit there. And the entire ride, my mother sat next to the woman like this. I want to give my mother credit for being very protective of me. She did have her crazy rule, but she always protected me. I never felt unsafe.
I can relate to that. Each Sunday, my father used to get up 7 and to see who's gonna come down. If we come down before 8, we get breakfast. Anytime after that, no, you gotta wait till.
That's it. Sorry, missed it. You would come down at 8 o'clock in 1 second, and he used to be putting it away like scraping the ground. Got too late.
What I used to do is I just race my brothers down, come down, sweep outside because the cars are outside, and because the yard is big.
Mm-hmm.
I used to use the cars as an excuse so I have to move them so I could sweep. Plus I get to drive the car.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, you try to learn the little ways around their strictness. I like that. I like that.
You gotta have fun.
Was there any point in time when you couldn't understand what your mother was telling you? Is she dating?
My mother's accent didn't really get too thick, but except when she was mad at me. I don't want to use a bad word, but this is a great story. But you know what? Yeah, I'll tell you a story, and I'll use my ability to not say. I'll just go like that, so I won't say the word. 2 o'clock in the morning. It's summer for me, so I'm off, and somehow I think my mother gets off too from work. I was 11 years old, and I had a stomach ache. And when you have a stomach ache in a West Indian family, you drink ginger ale. I could not open this bottle. I tried for 20 minutes, so I went and knocked on the door. She didn't open it. I'm like, Mommy. Mommy. She opened the door. I said, Mommy, I'm sick. Can you open this ginger ale? She said, yeah. Open the bottle and spray ginger ale all over it. So that was the only time when her accent came out when she was really magical. I never, like slow motion, she was so never forget that. Or one more story, my mother, when her accent comes up. One of my friends called me from college and said, hi, Mrs. Grant. May I speak to Chris? She said, oh, Chris is not here. He's outside. Well, okay. She's like, who's calling? And he said, his name was Yukin, right? So he said, Yukin. My mother said, I can what? He called me right afterwards. Like, he called me on my cell. He's like, hey, man, the money is in here. I can what? Okay.
I think we have time for like one more.
Okay, let's go. I need a good one. Let's go. And I look as I make eye contact with people to see if they want to ask a question. See, you did it again. I was like, you know, really. If I look down, then why do people do that? Like you're walking down the street and you see the person and they see you see them and they go, oh, if I look over here and act like I don't see him, then he ain't gonna see me. I saw you. It happened to me yesterday. I saw you. Like what are you trying to act like I didn't see you? Like, more questions? Okay.
Did you take writing classes?
I'm sorry, I'm unable to answer your question. I don't know your name.
Camille Boyd.
Okay, Miss Mimi.
Did you take writing classes?
I took one writing class in college, in Introduction to Creative Writing, and the teacher said, I can visualize what you're doing. I I talked about flying over the Serengeti. He said, I can visualize that. Oh yeah, whatever. I want to play video games. I want to play football. I want to twist my hair. Because I had really long locks. Putting beeswax in my hair. I'm kind of crazy. That's disgusting. If you guys grow locks, do not put beeswax in your hair. Not a good look when it rains. So then my ex-wife, and you know, I didn't used to be able to say that. Like, it's so cathartic to be able to say my ex-wife. I used to be like, yeah, this woman that I had dated back in the day. Now I can actually say it and I'm okay with it. She read some of my short stories. I also wrote short stories. And said, you know what, these are good, you should take a writing class. I took one writing class. I didn't do my assignment, and I am in no way, shape, or form endorsing not doing your work. But I didn't do my work for the class, and I had to hand something in. I'm like, okay, I have 2 chapters of Teenie. Because I didn't tell you that story. Okay, I'm gonna go off on a tangent again. So the woman who liked my book at Jump at the Sun that asked me if I could write young adult, I wrote 2 chapters, she loved it. She said, okay, but I'm leaving, I'm going to Scholastic. This assistant is going to take care of your stuff. So I'm like, man, everybody talks about how hard it is to get published. I'm going to get published. I don't even need an agent. So I will call this woman. Yeah, this is Chris. Haven't heard from you in a couple months. Just wondering if, you know, what's the next step? Never heard from her again. Put the book down. Now we can go back to my ex-wife. Told me to take the class. I handed in those 2 chapters of Teenie that have been dormant for 3 years. I'm thinking the class is going to rip it to shreds. When we did something that was called a booth, where you sat, not necessarily in the middle, you sat in a circle, you couldn't talk, you couldn't respond to critics. Well, I couldn't understand why. That's because you can't do that. You just had to sit there and take the criticism. So I had my pen already, nothing but praise. Oh my God, this is so good. How did you get inside of the mind of a 14-year-old girl, blah, 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 blah. They loved it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. But it wasn't until my instructor pulled me aside and said, if you continue to write this book, it will get published. And his encouragement, he's in the thank yous, Dominic Preziosi, helped to give me that. It was like a catalyst for me to continue writing. So yes, 1 writing class at Gotham, Fiction 101. And I think that's it, unless somebody wants to sneak a quick question in.
Somebody could sneak one.
And then we'll do.
Have you done free writing?
What's that now?
Have you ever done free writing?
Free writing. I'm not sure what that is. You just write, like, pick a random topic and just write?
You write off the top of your head.
Oh yeah, all the time I do that. See, I didn't even know if I like, what's free writing? Yeah, all the time. I write short stories on the train, like somebody will step on my shoe and then I'll just, like, okay, it's in my head, I didn't write it, but when I'm listening to certain types of music, people say it doesn't influence your behavior, but it does. I was listening to Wu-Tang, and I was all like this, and the lady stepped on my shoe, and I was like, I know you would just step on my shoe. And I'm just like, oh man, I gotta take these headphones off because this is making me, I'm putting some Kenny G on. I had the Wu-Tang on. Bro, I'm gonna give it to you. Like, okay, this is the last one, so we have to stop. But go ahead.
Do you live in Brooklyn now?
I don't live in Brooklyn anymore. My mother still does. I live in Harlem now. But I do miss Brooklyn. I miss my rice and peas and my jerk chicken, because Harlem, like, what's jerk chicken, son? We never heard of that. I do miss Brooklyn. I do miss it. I probably will move back in the very near future. Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.